is a container. So then that type of a communication start to breaking apart all these questions that usually an executive have, that it not necessarily have to be technical. First thing that I had to learn was, okay, so Kubernetes or any technology for complex. So imagine for an executive, it's even more complex. So I had to try to find out what I can provide that can a little bit of advantage in the side. So talking about, oh, this is an awesome containers and all, to like, hey, remember that you have this issue that is fast and we're having these delays on the deployment side. Well, it looks like we found a tool that actually can help us do that. But instead of talking about the tool, I was talking more about, hey, read, these are multiple report companies that actually are doing using this, and these are the results. So now I was able to open a conversation. I'm not saying that it got solved, but it was used that technology complexity and basically make it more like an strategic insight, like a tool, in this case Kubernetes, to basically store that. Okay. So that was my first step into the communication side, right? But like, right, so you need to build trust. So why I'm saying to build the trust is, imagine that at that point, basically was almost no reference of Kubernetes and Kubernetes tools, right? It was like also on my goal, but I had to basically align with my CTO and try to make it happen. So I had to build a trust. So I'm gonna give you that specific case. I know that in today's day it's different because everyone knows about it. So I'm assuming a lot knows about Kubernetes and this context. So no one knew how can I build that trust. No one cared, right? So the first thing that I be forward. All right. This is a very cool. Is there's not many cases built around it, so I'm establishing the trust. I'm building to my manager. But I did make these many labs in my spare time. I achieved these many examples. By the way, in a staging environment that we have that is not working to production, I put a little piece of that technology to work in this space, and these are the results that I got. So now I'm building a trust, right? So he knows that I'm leaning forward and then like, okay, so there's not. We know we also build multiple case studies. So it's not just about like how awesome the tool is, but it's also about, hey, this is about basically, he got this. So I have to trust, and I got it. So that was a good news. So, but the next step is, all right. So how we can now talk about the actual technical value without having to touch upon the values, right? On the technology side. So that's where I have to start using the pilots as my support on the conversation. So for example, there was a high transactional service that really high spikes, and basically have to make sure that they didn't go down because the certain time frames of the day that these were high. And then what I did is like, okay, so I can use technology because it was new. No one really have any reference, but I still had to give them the value. So I used one of those that transactional service, and then I showed like, all right, so I simulated most spikes in the day, right? And this actually the cost associated with were using containers. It was a little more, it was smaller, it was faster to get up, and versus in that case, being stacked with some other feature, I don't remember anymore. It was like 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And then kind of was the cost was a lot higher. So now I was able to use the technical benefits, but translate into non-technical world. So he was able to kind of like figure it out by himself and see the value on that specific example, right? So that was the first. I'm gonna make a small pause here, but that's the first three scenarios that I faced when I was doing, my first adoption of Kubernetes in this case where no one knew about it, and I had to basically make a case. So I was able to translate the complexity, make it simple. I was able to bring, build the trust around it, and then bring the technology value, translate it more into a non-technical world, right? So to the point that I'll be able to get a yay. It was a little hard, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't build the case using non-technical words, right? One second. Sorry about that. The next step was right. So now we need to get what's important for them, right? So far I got the J, it's everything. So it's time to like do the real pilot, one that actually is gonna be a true adoption and is gonna basically build a case study around it. So we need to understand four items here that really struck me, and talking to multiple people after that, I found out that is where most of the engineers, and that's a stat, but it's true. Um, Most of them just drop the ball here, and because then it feels like you live in the tech part and basically becoming a business person. But at the end, are if you're going from junior to senior, you need to start getting into this realm, let's call it that way, in order to basically be able to implement solutions, because they're not just pure technical, right? Anytime that you're building a solution, is some sort of a business case, right? So in this case, I had to start learning about what is ROI. At that point, for me, was foreign. Um, Analyze risk. And it's basically clear the risk that we had. It was like we were adopting something that in June is gonna be 10 years old. At that point, it was less than a year old, and I just wanted to use it. I knew the value, but I also understood the risk. We actually had to work on the market, and you may ask like, why market? Like, why? But real the market has any impact here? It does, because you need to find either you have to find a reference of companies on the same market or teams on the same market that actually have to, I have not implemented those technologies, what the results were, because not everything's the same. If you're in healthcare, most likely you have a completely different set of impacts or of cases that if you're in fintech or if you are in government. So it's kind of like they are different. There's a lot of difference between markets, so you need to understand where you are in order to make any solution. And then, of course, where's the growth? Anything that you do has to have an impact on growth. So, and I learned this the hard way. Bringing in technology just for it won't take to the upper management. I know the cases where we are companies where they're all like most like basically and small tech startup this is a lot easier because it's a small group. Everyone is just happy to do a lot and it's great. But when you're talking to like established companies, large companies, usually it's a lot slower. And it had to have an impact, right? So if I bring a technology, it's either going to save money, it's going to increase my scale, it's going to increase my efficiency. So it had to have some sort of impact and growth. So that actually was another one that I had to like kind of wrap my head around before even get to that step, right? So first thing first, focusing on the ROI. I was interested because in that case the ROI was more about saving money. Why? Because if this success, the company should be able to reduce the cost of management of deployment about like at that time, kind of like 30%. Initially, I found out it was about 15%, and then of course it was a small number to even care. But after doing multiple pilot, we found out that it was actually got even more. So we doubled that 30%. That was significant. ROI for them, because the investment was kind of like justified the end, right? And I do apologize if I'm getting way too business here. It's kind of like the way that I have to learn it in order to basically get this case built. So at the end, at that kind of solution architect, I have to understand what is the resource that I have to bring, what is the result that I'm gonna get, right? So at that point, it was gonna be a small team of 3 people that is gonna be investing the time about 6 months. We projected be. Not everything exactly that we want, but it was about 8 months that at the end we end up spending. But we actually budgeted that. We budgeted like what if it goes all the way to 12 months? So we didn't went to the worst case scenario. We actually got in right in the middle of it. So it was 8 month investment the time, but then the ROI was going to be significant because the cost spent at that time was a lot higher. So basically, that was our case study around the ROI. So we actually managed to find what was the return of investment, and basically clearly communicate that to not only the CTO but everyone else that is going to be there, including members of the board. So after that, we definitely had to basically understand how we're going to, instead of having to do dives, what they want is a strategy. Like, all right, so you have to build a plan, a strategy, and that was actually another interesting part because it was a lot of writing. And this is actually supports a lot some of the business, whatever it is, type of concept where before you even write a line of code, you have to basically map out as much as possible so you understand where you're at. And basically, they work the same way. So we have to basically find what was the strategy overall of the company, and we have to use the technology to adapt to that strategy. We want to do it the other way around. We want to have the technology, and then everyone has to adapt to it. So yeah, reality hit up and say no. You usually have to support that strategy, right? So that was kind of a lot of writing that we had to do, give us a value back to us because it mapped out a whole roadmap of what we had to do, was going to be the first service, what was going to be we're going to tackle this one first, then the other one. Which one are we willing to compromise? Because that's another thing that we have to also keep in mind when we're doing society overviews. It's more about which one are we willing to compromise if we have to say we stop here or we pause. So those are the things that you need to lay out when you're doing that. Nothing related to deep dive technicals, because sometimes we want to have in those conversations like really dump of all the information technical related, but it really doesn't help to build a case, right? And last but not least, and this section is kind of like we have to make sure that we then bring some sort of like a security or guarantee getting out of it. Of course, from the Kubernetes standpoint, specifically, which is to referring to scalability, security, and efficiency. But not that clear at that time because security actually got better now. But let's say for the time being, it was a lot better than the alternative. So we had to basically provide those guarantees and say, okay, so let's say that we're talking about scalability. Well, that was the main driver of the adoption, was like we're gonna focus on the scalability, be able to handle those spikes in a more efficient way, reduce costs and all that. But then we had to support how we're gonna basically make this secure. And why? Because every time that we talk about new technology, the first question is secure? It's an open source tool, so we will not usually open source tool get judged being not secure. And when at that point we had to do a whole basically workshop about like how really open source is a lot more secure than the other alternative, because you have more people looking at the code. They can spot errors faster, which actually I got very surprised how fast we saw now the XC command. So that was actually great to see that the whole community got that faster, and we can solve problems a lot faster. So that was the last point that I had to basically make sure that I draw it out on the plan that collaborate. We had to do collaboration with the entire team that was going to be involved. It's just so that's kind of wrap up like what is inside their mind and how we need to basically portray the entire case that we want to bring to their mind, right? So just a quick pause. Any questions so far? Okay, the other screen. So if there's any question, you let me know, Matt. I don't have the other screen available.
Yeah, I'm on the chat. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So then now we're gonna go to the next step, which is to go from jargon to value. And as I was saying at the beginning, at the end, if you want to get something out of it, if you want to go the way that you are expecting to be, you have to always translate to value. So this is similar to talking about the kind of like get out a little bit more. And the first one is we need to identify the business impact. Right. So what was bringing Kubernetes? Kubernetes. I'm using the case study, right? So Kubernetes, why not something else we even care about? So I had to find the impact that at that point. As the example that I was using is huge spikes constantly during the day because people were shopping or whatever, and our services were interconnected. There was a lot of services that spike, at the same time. So because we had to provide basically less than 30 seconds at that time response of like you gotta approve. So there was a lot of stuff involved here. I picked the one that was more painful, right? And this is one of the tips that I'm gonna here's like start the most painful one because usually that is talking about the most. If you're bringing something that is not under sessions, most likely won't get even looked at because we have to understand at the end it's about which issue and what they care about. You talk their language, they're talking your language. So that's the first thing that I did. Of course, we had to use metaphors. They don't understand, and it's great if you have very technical or technical. Doesn't mean that the metaphor or what you're trying to bring is something they directly have experienced. It's always better to start with something related, work your way back to the guy. So, for example, in that case, I was just using to explain the same example that we all know. Like, oh, imagine that now you have this entire disorganized port, and then you can move all your containers easier to fade. And the reaction that I got was, I don't work at port. I have no idea how a port works. So can you tell me something else, understand it? So I had to use a different metaphor. And then at that point was like, so what if you look at the how an event so you have the serves, you have the people that handle logistics, then you have the attendees, you have so you have the senior, so you have so many things to handle a huge event. So imagine that Kubernetes is focusing on one thing only, but so that's why you actually see that impressive. Like I said, huge. It's 1,000 people. So it's great to know everything works out. The end is because you have focus on one thing only. So at that point, and then it's so that helped out because he was he understood one better, and he said, oh, now the value, okay, God is gonna have a tool that is gonna handle though we are workloads a lot better, right? Great, so awesome. So we move on to basically try to bring the complexity, because at this stage and say, yes, you gotta, it also have pods, and then you can have that gRPC, HTTP, and save even more in transaction with it. I say it's where the time that you need to stop and go back again. It's like, just because he understood the metaphor does not mean he's gonna understand all the details. So we brought the other, it's like, well, now we have this. There's how to be, all the type of the noise around it that we can also include in Kubernetes, that it can help us out not only to tackle the first and most pressure item, business impact, but also it can also supplement all the things that we need. Like, for example, a better discovery service. At that point, we were actually building our own. Why? So now this can do that for us, and basically, we will save some time on development. We can repurpose that to work on all the things that were not even looked at because we needed to build that. So different additional, I explained that we had to explain with the technical details of with the strategy. So you can always type a feature or whatever tool you want to bring to us. So this focus on the outcome. Like I said, here's like the most common one is cost saving, growth, innovation. In this case, it was cost saving. That was the most pressure one. Sorry, guys. It was cost saving because we were sites that were not necessary. But that doesn't mean that always have to be cost saving. You can also tie it to growth. Growth could be like, let's say we can handle more users. Our business now goes from 1 million to 10 million, or I don't know. We now have to integrate with other chains. And more traffic or more, or let's say that we are in the case where let's put it away, the telco company where betting service is on it. So you can do that. You can tie to it, but only if the most pressure item on the book is related to it. If they're talking about what else can we do, we need to bring more revenue, everything. At most likely go to slightly also tied to growth, but usually innovation. If you talk about like, we supply, the demand is actually, asking us to do, that's usually growth. And then, hey, I don't know what's going on, but costs are way too high. So that, without saying, goes back to goal saving, right? Any question to the point? Good. Okay. So this is another real world example. Yes, there was a question here.
No, I don't see any questions, Angel.
Just checking. All right. So I'm bringing another real world example. This actually was a retail company that we also helped them implement. But I'm gonna explain the challenge so you understand what was the technology side. This one is simple. Was
can I interrupt for just one moment?
Is my upper mass.
Your signal is a little bit choppy. Maybe you could turn off your video to conserve bandwidth, and just the audio will come across.
All right. Let me check. How about now?
That?
Is it better now?
Yeah, I turned off your video so we don't see you. So now let's see how the audio works.
Okay,
Go ahead.
sounds good. Just let me know if the audio comes out again. It's a hotel internet. Sorry. Okay, so what I was saying is in this case the challenge was instead of convincing or let's say building a case to upper management, and now it's more about like right, so we were asked, hey, what's happening here? So we have to understand the technology actually fits that, right? This case kind of similar. There was a huge. This one is used is system, right? So they didn't have some sort of like a constant case we're looking at, but here it's more like a hey, passive way to. So of course we all love Kubernetes. That's the whole point of this conversation. But we can just not say Kubernetes by itself. So we basically have to go through the steps that I described and kind of like find those specific impacts that we have to find out to the same case we did it, and then at the end, of course, right? But here's the interesting one, right? So it's not about that is your life is all good, right? It's more about right. So the outcome that they were looking for, right? That was exactly a very customer fashion. Once again, I know that this sounds like a lot like a business words. That's what you need to do in order to have your manager, whoever is basically you're talking to, is to make sure that the tool always tied to a goal. And these are the goals that they were looking for. They got the what they're looking for in that case, right? So, for example, like the same, I'll say steps that I did before and applies looking for in terms of like adding to whatever you are. So, he said there are some tips that usually as a wrap up of the talk. This is slides with all of you, so feel free to take notes right the as well as the call. But once again, making it the complex. That's the first step. You cannot bring tech jargon. You cannot talk, even though that you might be so passionate about it, because at the end we're gonna end up again into like a rabbit hole instead of actually making sure that it's simple enough that they can get interested on. The second tip is always use. I know this sounds like we now going to become storytellers, we're going to become business person, but you have to be at least enough to be able to explain in a video or for what is the solution about that they can understand. This one is the one that's stressing off. Always have to have an impact. Another example that I'm going to use here was using, for example, gRPC in one of the cases that we were looking for. It was like a couple of years after the first adoption. We saw that our microservices were impacted, so they were lagging. So clearly, we say, hey, well, we don't use gRPC internally and only expose the HTTP for the API. That makes a lot of sense, but how can you explain gRPC to a upper management? Because at the end, you have to get them buying to. Sorry, it's not a complete rewrite, but you have some sort of like a layer that you can lay in every service in order to now use gRPC communication instead of plain HTTP. So interesting one, but at the end, what we say is like, all right, so here's what's going on. So you see that our the credit service is basically taking 30 seconds to get an approved. Customers are impatient. They 30 seconds is an eternity in the internet. Usually less than that. Of course, in something that requires a lot of iterations, a credit and way give a reply of how much you're being approved for is a milliseconds option. Help to from 30 seconds to under. Now we're talking because that means that get better.
I think we might have lost Angel.
Once again, it sounds like a business, but have to be tied to impact. And I'm hearing someone, but I don't know if it's a question or it's okay.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a couple seconds there, but you're back now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So, just to summarize it, it's just to tie it to a business impact, so you actually have this, right? So, the next step is aligning with the first example with business was the spikes and about I realized all the other one we made it. This tip is make sure always conversations. So, this one
I think he's totally gone.
focusing on hey, we're gonna explain this specific thing and then go to that, and that's it. So hyperextension, I would say, is actually the best path. I know that we all want to implement it right away, but we also need to make sure that everyone. So those minimum shapes actually helps a lot. And this one goes along with that one. It's always actions. Happen multiple times in conversations where I heard and it didn't happen that way. I always try to make sure that is there a question I can clarify? Is there something that am I missing? Because sometimes it's kind of we think that after explaining everything was good because there was no questions, and some could be also a sign of confusion, right? So this one is very important as well. And I think I give an example of this one is be just. Happened to me with the case of the chip. So there was nothing. by buying in having those applications, those maybe like 15 like and just 5 minutes is there depression though that once it could be, and all you have to do is to ask and continue that culture, right? And just to wrap up, and we close now, is just to make sure that there's some takeaways here that you done is translate take into business value. That's the most critical one. Otherwise you won't get any type of in understanding the language. It's not what you think it is what they in your shoes, not in your shoes. And that's kind of what we have in something. Someone you have to walk in their shoes first, so you understand what always bump about technology and how much we can do with it and all that. But the more you can simplify it, it's gonna be the easier to take, and then are using those business impact to explain the functionalities. So okay, so this is it. This is what I have for you today. I'm happy to take any questions or any comments. I'm happy to answer. And I hope with this presentation you can kind of have an idea of how to bring more technology adoption to wherever you are at this moment.
Thanks, Angel. That was great. Yeah, if anybody wants to go ahead and ask some questions, you can come off mute or use chat, whatever you like.
Absolutely. This is where I'm going to apply my own tip. Is there any questions? Every single clear enough? Can I bring it to?
Yeah, I don't know. There were a few technical challenges during the event, Angel. We lost you for few moments at a time, so it might be easier for folks to go back and review the audio and kind of listen one more time.
Okay.
So let me do this. Let's see if I can present now and just wrap up with a thank you. Let's see. So can you see now the screen here? So
yeah, we can see it.
Thank you everybody for joining. This is another monthly meetup for Cloud Native Nova, Cloud Native DC, Kubernetes Community Days, Washington, DC. As a thank you, if you're planning to go to KubeCon North America in November, it's going to be in Salt Lake City. There is a special discount code you can use here on the screen for 15% off your ticket. Go ahead and write that down or take a screenshot. Use the KCNA24 meetup code for 15% off. That bit.ly link will get you to the registration URL, which is a lot longer, so tried to shorten that for you. So feel free to do that. And if you have a moment, if you could, please just take a quick survey of your experience today. That'll help us, continue to offer speakers that are engaging for you, and hopefully, you guys will get value out of it every month. That is it. I will have the recording posted soon, either the YouTube live recording, or I did record this in the conference platform here. So whichever one comes out better, I'll post that one for folks and share that by email and social and so forth. So look for that. Any last things, anybody? All right.
Quickly, thank you,
Yeah.
Matt, for inviting me, and thank you for everyone for joining. I do apologize for the audio thing. I'm in a hotel room, but if any question, please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm happy to help the community in any way possible. Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Angel. All right, folks. Well, have a great Tuesday. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Bye.